What happened, Gandalf? Why didn't you meet us? I'm sorry, Frodo. I was delayed, Gandalf explains to Frodo in Peter Jackson's film adaptation of The Fellowship of the Ring. What befell you on the road? He asked, studying the wizard's face. We waited at the prancing pony, but you never appeared. A shadow passed across Gandalf's countenance, and his gaze drifted momentarily to the window, as if seeing something far beyond the verdant landscape. I was prevented from joining you, he murmured, the words heavy with unspoken meaning. The equivalent passage in the novelization by Ian Chesterfield, itself adapted from Jackson's film. These two examples of the same scene offer us a compelling lens through which to examine the fundamental differences between film and prose as storytelling media. The film version is concise and direct, relying on brevity and the economy of dialogue to quickly convey meaning. By contrast, the prose version unfolds with greater verbal nuance. We are told what Frodo is doing, what Gandalf looks like, and even what he might be feeling or thinking. Prose excels at inhabiting consciousness and invites readers to slow down, reflect, and imagine. To further explore these differences, this video will look at one part of the story in both the film and the novelization of The Fellowship of the Ring. First, we'll watch a short clip from the film. Then, we'll read the matching chapter from the novelization. Since films move quickly and can show a lot in just a few minutes, while novels often take pages to describe the same events, we'll break the novelization chapters into short passages. After each passage, we'll stop to talk about what works well in the novel, what might be stronger in the film, and how each version tells the story in its own way. We'll go back and forth like this until we've worked through the whole chapter. At the end, we'll wrap everything up by thinking about what each medium does best, where they might struggle, and how comparing them helps us understand the story in a new way. By the time we're finished, we'll have a much clearer idea of how storytelling changes when it moves from screen to page, and why that matters. Let's begin. Where am I?
You are in the house of Elrond, and it is 10 o'clock in the morning, on October the 24th, if you want to know.
Gandalf.
Yes, I'm here, and you're lucky to be here too. A few more hours and you would have been beyond our aid, but you had some strength in you, my dear hobbit.
What happened, Gandalf? Why didn't you meet us?
Oh, I'm sorry, Frodo. I was delayed. A friendship with Saruman is not lightly thrown aside. One ill turn deserves another. It is over. Embrace the power of the ring, or embrace your own destruction. There is only one Lord of the Ring, only one who can bend it to his will, and he does not share power. So you have chosen death.
Gandalf? What is it?
Nothing, Frodo.
Frodo! 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 Sam! Bless you, you're awake!
Sam has hardly left your side.
We were that worried about you, weren't we, Mr. Gandalf?
By the skills of Lord Elrond, you're beginning to mend. Welcome to Rivendell, Frodo Baggins.
Bilbo! Hello, Frodo, my lad. Bilbo. Oh. There and back again. A Hobbit's Tale by Bilbo Baggins. This is wonderful. I meant to go back, wander the paths of Mirkwood, visit Lake Town, see the lonely mountain again, but age, it seems, has finally caught up with me. I miss the Shire. I spent all my childhood pretending I was off somewhere else, off with you on one of your adventures. But my own adventure turned out to be quite different. I'm not like you, Bilbo. My dear boy. Now what have I forgotten? Packed already? No harm in being prepared. I thought you wanted to see the elves, Sam. I do. More than anything. I did. It's just, we did what Gandalf wanted, didn't we? We got the ring this far to Rivendell, and I thought, seeing as how you're on the mend, we'd be off soon. Off home. You're right, Sam. We did what we set out to do. The ring will be safe in Rivendell. I am ready to go home. Next, we'll read the first passage from the chapter of the novelization, and then compare and analyze the differences. A soft radiance gently coaxed him from the darkness. The young hobbit's eyelids fluttered as consciousness returned, though his mind remained adrift between nightmares and reality. Pain lingered in his shoulder, a cold, persistent ache that seemed to pulse with each heartbeat. His last memories were of frigid air, desperate flight, and a darkness pursuing him across weathered hills. Where? His voice emerged as little more than a perched whisper, fear threading through the single word. Where have I been taken? Through the swirling haze of his thoughts came a voice, warm and familiar, like a beacon guiding him back to shore.
You are safe within Lord Elrond's domain,
the voice assured him.
and it is mid-morning on October the 24th, if such details interest you.
The hobbit's eyes finally opened, adjusting to the gentle illumination of his surroundings. He found himself lying in a bed of impossible comfort, beside an open window. Sunlight dappled through intricately carved wooden beams that arched overhead like the boughs of ancient trees. Beyond the window, the soothing melody of a distant waterfall mingled with the rustling of fir trees swaying in the breeze. Gandalf! The hobbit breathed, relief washing over his features as his gaze settled on the figure seated beside his bed. The elderly wizard sat comfortably in a chair, his weathered hands cradling a pipe, from which wisps of fragrant smoke curled lazily toward the ceiling. His eyes crinkled with warmth beneath bushy eyebrows as he regarded his young friend.
Indeed, I am here,
Gandalf replied, his voice gentle, yet carrying a hint of gravity.
And fortunate it is that you are as well. Had we delayed your treatment by even a handful of hours more, I fear we would have lost you entirely. There is remarkable resilience in you, dear fellow, more than even I suspected.
The hobbit pushed himself upright, wincing slightly at the lingering pain in his shoulder. Confusion clouded his features as fragments of memory returned to him. "What befell you on the road?" he asked, studying the wizard's face. "We waited at the prancing pony, but you never appeared." A shadow passed across Gandalf's countenance, and his gaze drifted momentarily to the window, as if seeing something far beyond the verdant landscape.
"I was prevented from joining you,"
he murmured, the words heavy with unspoken meaning. In that moment, the wizard's mind travelled back to the Tower of Orthanc, where he had faced betrayal from one he had long called friend and ally. He could still feel the cold stone against his battered body as he lay sprawled upon the summit, Saruman standing triumphant above him.
"Embrace what the ring offers,"
the White Wizard had demanded, his once wise eyes now burning with terrible ambition.
"or embrace your own destruction."
Through magic that twisted the very air, Saruman had lifted Gandalf from the ground, only to dash him violently back to the stone floor. Pain had lanced through every fibre of his being. In that moment of weakness, Gandalf had prepared himself for the end, until a flicker of movement caught his peripheral vision.
"There is only one true master of the ring,"
Gandalf told his former friend, summoning his remaining strength.
"Only one who can bend it to his purpose, and he does not share his power."
With a desperate surge of will, Gandalf threw himself from the tower's edge, plummeting through the air as Saruman rushed to the parapet. But instead of meeting his end on the unforgiving earth below, Gandalf had been swept away on mighty wings, borne to safety by Gwaihir, Lord of the Eagles, as Saruman's furious cry echoed behind them.
"So you choose death,"
the White Wizard had called after him, his voice carried away by the wind. But it had been life that Gandalf chose, though the path ahead remained shrouded in shadow. The memory dissolved as the hobbit's concerned voice drew him back to the present. "Gandalf?" The young one was watching him intently, worry etched across his features. "What troubles you?" The wizard's eyes refocused, and he offered a reassuring smile.
"Nothing of consequence. You are safe, and that is what matters most."
Before either could speak further, the door burst open, and a stout figure rushed into the room, face flushed with excitement.
"Master Frodo!"
the newcomer exclaimed, hurrying to the bedside.
"Oh, praise be! You've awakened at last!"
Gandalf smiled fondly at the devoted companion.
"Your loyal friend has scarcely left your side since your arrival. I believe he would have forgone meals had I not insisted otherwise."
"We've been beside ourselves with worry," the stout hobbit said, his honest face reflecting both relief and lingering concern. "Haven't we, Master Gandalf?"
"Indeed we have, Samwise,"
the wizard agreed, his eyes twinkling with affection for both hobbits.
"The skills of Lord Elrond have begun to mend what dark magic sought to unmake."
Gandalf continued, gesturing toward the doorway, where a tall, elegant figure had appeared. The newcomer stepped forward with fluid grace that spoke of immeasurable years. His face possessed an ageless quality, neither young nor old, yet somehow both. In his eyes shone the light of countless stars, and the memory of ages, both joyful and sorrowful. A subtle radiance seemed to emanate from him, as though reflecting some inner light.
"I welcome you to Imladris, Frodo Baggins,"
the Elf Lord said, his melodious voice carrying both authority and kindness.
"Though I wish our meeting had come under more favourable circumstances."
Frodo gazed upon the legendary figure with undisguised wonder, momentarily speechless in the presence of one whose tales he had heard since childhood.
This passage from the novelization exemplifies the unique power of prose as a medium to invoke inner worlds, subtleties of emotion, and layers of atmosphere that film, though potent in its own right, can only approximate through visual and auditory shorthand. As a written medium, prose offers the capacity to dwell within a character's internal experience. In this passage, Frodo's awakening unfolds not simply as a plot point, but as an emotional re-entry into the world. His transition from pain and confusion into tentative relief is described with sensory precision. The details are intimate, selective, and stylized, not merely reporting what happens, but shaping the tone of recovery, warmth, and lingering danger. The prose also benefits from its ability to shift focalization seamlessly. It begins closely aligned with Frodo's sensory impressions and emotional uncertainty, then glides into Gandalf's memory with fluid grace, layering in a flashback that deepens the narrative without jarring the reader. The film had to rely on visual cues and crossfades to manage such a transition, but here the written form allows for psychological depth and narrative compression. Gandalf's confrontation with Saruman is presented as a vivid memory, dramatized with action, dialogue, and emotion, yet framed entirely within the space of a few paragraphs. We understand its importance, not because we see it staged, but because we feel it weighing on him, even in silence. Still, the novelization's strengths come with limitations. The evocation of setting, while vivid and lyrical, requires the reader's imaginative investment. Descriptions like, quote, a bed of impossible comfort, or Elrond's face possessed an ageless quality, end quote, are suggestive rather than specific, whereas the film rendered these elements instantly and precisely, making such moments tangible through design, lighting, and performance. Prose must describe what film can simply show. Let's continue.
The valley sprawled below him like something from a dream, a hidden paradise nestled between towering cliffs and snow-capped mountains. Elegant structures of impossible grace rose among ancient trees, their architecture flowing with the natural contours of the landscape, rather than imposing upon it.
This sanctuary has sheltered my people for 3 millennia,
Lord Elrond explained, as Frodo took in the breathtaking vista from his balcony.
though few of my kindred remain now in these waning days.
The soft afternoon light gilded the valley, catching on distant waterfalls that cascaded like flowing silver from the heights. Birds called to one another among the trees, their songs melding with the ever-present sound of flowing water. For the first time since leaving the Shire, Frodo felt truly safe. The gardens of Rivendell bloomed with flowers that should have withered weeks ago in the advancing autumn. Frodo and Sam walked together along winding paths, the smaller hobbit still watching his master with protective vigilance. Their peaceful moment was interrupted by jubilant cries as two familiar figures bounded toward them, faces alight with relief and joy. "Frodo! Frodo!" They rushed forward, enveloping him in an enthusiastic embrace that nearly toppled him. But suddenly, Frodo's attention shifted beyond his young cousins. There, seated alone on a stone bench bathed in sunlight, was a familiar figure, bent with age, yet radiating contentment. Frodo's expression transformed from surprise to wonder. "It cannot be," he whispered, hardly daring to believe his eyes. The elderly hobbit looked up, his weathered face breaking into a broad smile of recognition. "Well now, is that my favourite nephew I see before me? Uncle Bilbo!" Frodo rushed forward, embracing the fragile form with careful affection. The years had taken their toll. Bilbo Baggins was much changed from the sprightly hobbit who had departed the Shire. Lines of age mapped his face, and his once auburn hair had turned to silver, yet his eyes retained their bright spark of curiosity and mischief. Later, as they sat together on a terrace overlooking one of Rivendell's countless waterfalls, Bilbo proudly presented his nephew with a leather-bound journal. Frodo turned the meticulously inscribed title page with reverent fingers. "There and Back Again, A Hobbit's Tale by Bilbo Baggins," he read aloud, wonder in his voice. Page after page revealed beautiful handwriting, accompanied by intricate maps and detailed drawings, a lifetime of adventure captured in ink and parchment. "This is remarkable," Frodo said, admiring his uncle's craftsmanship. "Every detail rendered with such care." Bilbo nodded, a wistful expression crossing his features. "I had intended to journey back eventually, to wander once more beneath the eaves of Mirkwood, to see Lake Town rebuilt, to gaze upon the lonely mountain in the distance." He sighed, rubbing his knotted hands together. "But time catches even the most reluctant of us, it seems." Frodo turned another page to find a lovingly detailed map of the Shire, with its familiar hills and streams rendered in delicate strokes. "I find myself longing for home," Frodo admitted quietly, tracing the outline of Hobbiton with his fingertip. "All through my younger days, I dreamed of following in your footsteps, of seeing mountains and forests and all manner of wonders." He looked up at his uncle, his expression sombre. "Yet my own journey has proven quite different from what I imagined. I fear I haven't your courage at all." Bilbo placed a gentle hand on his nephew's arm. "My dear boy."
This passage from the novelization draws heavily on the strength of prose to convey emotional richness, thematic reflection, and sensory depth, things that may have been compressed or merely implied in the film. Rivendell, as rendered here, is not just a location, it's a symbol. The prose transforms it into an Eden-like sanctuary, brimming with natural and architectural beauty that resists the linear march of time. The way the valley is described builds a layered atmosphere that speaks not just to aesthetics, but to emotional respite, permanence, and melancholy. In the film, this was shown with sweeping camera shots and carefully composed visuals, but the prose has the luxury of making those visuals emotive. That emotional subjectivity is prose's particular strength. We are continually inside Frodo's experience. The novelization can focus on how things feel to him, without needing to externalize these sentiments through action or dialogue alone. The interiority gives us access to the dissonance between what Frodo hoped for at the start of his journey and what he has actually endured. That tension between innocent adventure and hard-earned wisdom is at the heart of Tolkien's themes, and Ian Chesterfield's novelization is able to dwell on it with clarity and grace. But if there's a weakness in this as a written medium, it's again in pacing. The prose's gift for nuance and inner life can risk slowing momentum in a story that, at this point, is pausing between trials. Some readers may feel the narrative has stalled, especially after the danger and urgency of the previous scenes. The film tightened this sequence, offering a 2-minute montage instead of pages of reflection. But in prose, the scene demands more time from the reader. This is not a flaw per se, it suits the contemplative mood, but it's a trade-off nonetheless. Let's continue.
The evening air carried the sweet fragrance of night-blooming flowers as Sam methodically packed and repacked his belongings, stuffing cooking implements, extra provisions, spare clothing, and various supplies into his already bulging pack. "What else might we need?" he muttered to himself, surveying the items spread before him. "Cannot forget the salt." "Planning our departure already?" Frodo's amused voice came from behind him. Sam started, looking up with a slightly sheepish expression. No harm in being prepared for the road ahead, is there? Frodo wandered to the edge of the balcony, gazing out at the twilight-shrouded valley. I thought you were eager to spend time among the elves, Sam. Wasn't that your dearest wish? It was, Sam acknowledged, setting aside a small cooking pot. And they're everything the stories promised, more beautiful than words can capture. He hesitated before continuing. But we've done what was asked of us, haven't we? We brought the ring safely to Rivendell, just as Master Gandalf instructed. And now that you're recovering, I thought perhaps... His voice trailed off hopefully. That we might return to the Shire, Frodo finished for him, a gentle smile touching his lips. You're right, of course. We fulfilled our obligation. He opened his palm, revealing the golden band resting innocently against his skin. The ring will remain safely hidden here in Rivendell. He closed his fingers around the band, an odd reluctance briefly crossing his features before he continued. I believe I'm ready to go home now, Sam.
This final passage draws upon the strengths of prose to quietly explore character psychology and interpersonal nuance in ways that were abbreviated or altered in the film. Rather than advancing the plot, the passage deepens our understanding of Sam and Frodo's emotional state after the perilous journey to Rivendell. The stakes here are internal: hope, uncertainty, longing, and prose excels at illuminating those subtle shifts in thought and feeling. The intimacy of the moment is one of its great strengths. Sam's habitual practicality, expressed through the tactile details of packing, grounds the scene in a domestic, hobbit-like normalcy. The act of preparing for a journey, even before it's necessary, becomes a reflection of Sam's unease, his desire to return to familiarity, his growing weariness, and perhaps his fear that Frodo's path may lead ever farther from home. The film simply showed him packing with a wistful expression, but it possibly struggled to convey the quiet tension beneath his preparations. Whereas in prose, we're allowed to linger inside his small decisions and muttered words, which carry emotional weight beyond their surface meaning. That said, the strengths of the prose are also where it becomes most vulnerable. Its subtlety demands reader attention and interpretive engagement. If the reader misses the flicker of reluctance, or the significance of Sam's methodical packing, the scene might feel like little more than a pause in the action. And while its introspective pace suits the medium, it might test the patience of a reader eager for narrative momentum. Ultimately, this chapter shows that prose allows for deep interiority, lyricism, and subtle emotional layering, using time and language to immerse the reader in thought and sensation. Film, in contrast, excels at immediacy, at capturing the grandeur of settings, the physicality of action, and the expressiveness of performance. Each medium has its own register of storytelling. Thank you for watching this comparative analysis. Next time, we'll be comparing the scene where Gandalf and Elrond discuss the fate of Middle-earth with the corresponding chapter in the novelization and analyzing the differences. Take care, and if you're listening to this, please send help.